There's one thing that I consistently see people do wrong in the world of growing money. And when I say consistently, I mean consistently across all income levels, all education levels, Ivy League degrees, state college degrees, no college degrees, making $100,000 a year, making $1 million a year, making anything in between there. It's one consistent thing that continues to hurt someone. And the one thing is thinking that the investment is the answer. Like, oh, I'll go get a bond, or oh, I'll go buy a stock, or oh, I'll go buy some gold. Like the asset class or the investment itself is the solution. And I'm seeing this more and more with people, not just over the age of 50 and 60 and even 70, where they're saying the solution to their problem is just go get some sort of high yield type investment, whether it's a REIT or a high yielding stock or maybe even a high yield type of insurance product. And the problem with this is if you just go get one of those things, how is that going to really help you by itself? And so the thought that's been hitting me this week is adaptability is the biggest unsung hero in the world of growing money. And when people get hurt, what I notice is they're not really adapting. They're just going with, whatever happens to bonds, I guess that's what's going to happen to me. And with things being so unstable and getting more unstable and more fragile and not the opposite, people are going to want more and more to have an investment that they invest in. And that strategy that they invest in, and that strategy has to be one that can adapt. Because if you go out and find a bond that pays 5%, even if it's tax-free, well, that's going to look great right now. But what happens in 3 or 4 years when interest rates are at 5%? That bond is not going to look too good. And even if interest rates don't go up, if you live in an area with inflation, 5% today is not going to be the same thing as 5% in 5 or 10 years. And so you're kind of stuck in that investment. But what you really want is to have a strategy that can adapt. So if you want high yield, find a strategy, build a strategy that has you adapt to what's going on, because adaptability is really one of the number one thing that's going to help you get through not only the next few years, but the next 30, 40, 50, 60 years, depending on your age. So the price chart that I have for you this week is a very, very long-term price chart of the U.S. 10-year bond going back to about 1981. And, it started way up at about 15%. It bottomed at 1.43% back in July of 2012. And the bond market seems to move in about 30 to 33-year cycles. So they fall for 30 to 33 years, and then they go up for 30 to 33 years. And like you've heard me say, we entered into the next bear market in the price of bonds, which is a bull market in the yield going up. But if you get a yield that's 3% now and then it's 6% in 3 years, that's going to really hurt your principal. So if you do own bonds, or want to own bonds, or want to own any instrument that has some sort of kind of guarantee return, which is really what people think bonds do, right? It's kind of guaranteeing a certain return. Same thing with insurance products. It's that guarantee. The problem with that is it is very, very, very likely, history says it's very likely, that near the end of this decade, if not much sooner, we're going to have inflation in the 5-8% range. And so if you're stuck with a 5% product, that's going to really affect your future because you didn't adapt to what was happening. And that's the biggest thing, to get the strategy that really adapts to what you have. Now, you've heard me talk before about the 3 parts of wealth, but it's so good to always come back to what the 3 parts are, because a lot of times people think to grow your net worth, to grow your choices, to grow your freedom is 50 different things or 100 different things or hundreds of different things, but it's really just 3. You got to be able to generate income. And depending on where you live in the U.S. or within the world, you got to generate a respectable or an appropriate amount of income. Here in Silicon Valley, I think anything above 300,000-ish is a good enough income to consider that you know how to generate income. Other parts of the country may be higher, maybe lower. Other parts of the world may be higher or lower, but it's always above 100,000. The second thing is you got to be able to set some money aside. Nothing good for your future comes from being able to generate hundreds of thousands of dollars today if you're not able to set money aside for your future, right? Those are your two parts of life: your life today, present moment, and your life in the future. And the third part, which gets most people in trouble, is that part where, okay, look, RC, I figured out how to generate income. I can generate hundreds of thousands of dollars a year. I figured out that I should set money aside, so I know how to do that. So I've got 2 out of the 3. But every time they get into that growth world, they step into that world, things slow down. Actually, their net worth decelerates. It's not helping. Most of their net worth comes from the generating of the income and the setting aside of some of that income they make. But man, when it gets to growing money, it's almost like an anchor on their net worth, and that can seem really frustrating. So if your finances, if your net worth, if your choices and freedom and travel and adventure and learning and giving back is not accelerating and you don't see that happening, then one of these 3, all of these 3, is hurting you. And as far as the people I work with, it's usually number 3. That's usually the most difficult to get aligned with who they are and get aligned with the market. So it's something to think about for this weekend. You guys have a great weekend. It's getting close to the next season. It is gorgeous today in Silicon Valley. Leaves are changing, even though they don't change like the Northeast. But nonetheless, some of them are starting to change. You guys have a great weekend. Hug your kids, hug your spouse, hug your grandkids. Thanks so much for being here, and I'll speak to you soon.